Did KSI cheat? We watched the fight with James and Shane. They're not here right now. It's just you and I to discuss this. We're the real boxing experts anyway. We all watched the fight on Saturday night, KSI versus Joe Fournier. KSI obviously winning and dominating the fight.
As I said he would.
As we all said he would. That doesn't make you a boxing expert. However, where your boxing knowledge is failing you is not being able to discern what is an illegal blow, which is pretty poor from you.
Listen, man. Was it an illegal blow? Technically, it was. I mean, I'm saying, for a start, I'm saying it was not an elbow. For those of you who don't know, an elbow is this. This is an elbow, yeah? If I do that, that is an elbow. If I hit you like that, that is a forearm. So it was a forearm, not an elbow. Was it an illegal blow? Yes, because obviously a forearm is not where you should be hitting somebody in a boxing match. That's more MMA, UFC. However, was it intentional? No. Did KSI cheat? No. Shouldn't be a rematch because there's no grounds for one, really, because at the end of the day, we all saw what happened. KSI landed the very first shot he threw. Literally, the very first right hand he threw landed. Fournier was never in the fight, despite what he said on social media about he took it and he was going to come on strong. Nonsense. He was way out of his depth.
But when you say there's no grounds for it, this is influencer boxing, right? This isn't a world-ranked... There's no grounds for any of this, really, apart from people just making it up, right? It's a complete made-up storyline, and they go with whatever they want to go with. So there's no grounds for anything. We're talking about, on a moral basis, you know, although he was losing the fight, that illegal blow does rob him of the opportunity to take an 8 count, to try and come back.
Robs him of the opportunity of going out on his shield.
Potentially, robs him of the opportunity of making a lot of money in a rematch.
No, he would have made a lot of money.
But I'm saying making a lot of money again on a rematch. I think he has a fair grounds. I don't think the distinction between elbow and forearm is as meaningful to you as it is to me. Some people said it was an elbow, maybe it was a forearm.
No, I was getting proper shaded when I said it wasn't.
The point
an elbow.
is, it was I still think it was, but the point is, it was an illegal blow. He's been KO'd by an illegal blow. I'm not going to say that KSI was cheating. I genuinely think it was an accident, but I think that he has some moral claim to a rematch.
I would agree with you there. I would agree with you there. I mean, if that happened to me, I would be asking for a rematch as well. When I said about the rematch, I meant more, do people want to see a rematch? I think it was evident in the couple of minutes that we saw that the disparity in terms of athleticism and ability and everything else was just too far. Fournier's 40 years old. Yes, he's had 9 or 10 professional fights. Yes, he had 9 wins. But then we also said in the show that we did, the DR Boxing Weekly show, make sure you check that out, that we said that those fights are pretty much all taking place in the Dominican Republic. There's a reason for that. All the opponents he'd fought had been pretty poor. The reason for that, I think there was a combined 23 wins and 116 losses in the guys that he fought.
Something like that, yeah.
So that tells its own story. And you didn't have to be Nostradamus to see that this fight was just a setup, really, for KSI to look good. In fact, Fournier was probably worse than I thought he was going to be, and I didn't think he would be any competition.
And if maybe that's true, but I think he deserves a rematch. If that's all true, and KSI can bang him out super easily...
Would you want to see a rematch?
I'm not too bothered about... The reality is, the guys that are doing this stuff are some of the biggest celebrities in the social media space, right? You know, they could fight anybody. You know, KSI could fight me and sell a load of money.
Do you think it would sell, though?
I think it would. It depends on. It's just like any other boxing card. It depends on the undercard as well. There's other things to underpin it. We've seen Anthony Joshua sell out against Charles Martin in traditional boxing. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, KSI is bigger than Anthony Joshua. He's that level of opponent. You know, he's that level of star, I should say. But I do think that Joe Fournier has a legitimate case, and I think if KSI is that good, he can knock him out legitimately and not resort to dirty cheating tactics like elbows and forearms. There's only 2 of us here, and I'm giving you the opinions of multiple people. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm the voice of reason, which you would know if you watched our show every week. But you know, if he really is that good, he can knock him out clean.
Listen, he can. I mean, as I said to you, there's a big disparity in levels in terms of athleticism, boxing ability, age. Just everything is just weighted in KSI's favour. It's like complete mismatch. And when I say about the rematch, when you said about morally speaking, yes, because of the way it transpired, you could make a case for there being a rematch. I accept that, 100%. However, the reality is the fight wouldn't be competitive. We didn't see anything that Joe Fournier did last night to suggest that it would be remotely competitive in a rematch. Subsequently, I don't think it would sell. There would be no interest in it. And I just don't think it's needed, bro.
You'd rather see him fight Tommy Fury?
Yeah, exactly. They've got the Tommy Fury fight lined up. You saw Tommy Fury jump in the ring after. You saw the, by now, almost expected scuffle, pre-fight scuffle that you always get these fights announced with. I just don't think there's no grounds. Maybe there's grounds on a moral basis, but in terms of business-wise, this just doesn't get off the ground for me.
Yeah. What do you mean business-wise? What do you mean by business-wise?
Meaning that there's no sellable reason for there to be a rematch.
You don't think that if they do a rematch, it would generate money? Because I think KSI is that level of star. That's the thing. We've seen Jake Paul fight people that are washed up MMA fighters that we know the fights aren't going to be competitive, and they still sell.
No, but what I'm saying, we've seen it once. Okay, yes, you can argue about the forearm. Do you want to see it twice? Do you want to see that fight again?
I'd rather see KSI Tommy Fury.
Exactly, and that's what I think that's the road they'll go down.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, I can understand Joe Fournier having a legitimate gripe, because if it was me, like I said, and I'd been knocked out, and I could prove that it was the forearm or the elbow, as people are saying, then yes, of course you're going to campaign for a rematch because your pride is hurt. You've got a get-out clause there. You're going to try and use it. But I would say this. You saw the Chris Eubank Jr. Liam Smith fight, right?
Yes.
A few months before. In that fight, in the aftermath, Chris Eubank Jr. claimed the elbow had gone in. And to be fair to him, when you look at it again, when you slow it down and look at it, it does appear to have been an elbow used.
Yeah. It's a legitimate claim, isn't it? It's not out of nowhere.
Yeah, right? What happened when he said that? What did the boxing fraternity tell him?
Nobody cared.
They said, shut up and get on with it, you lost.
How much of that is down to Eubank and Joe Fournier both building their image around being generally dislikable? That's part of their image. That's how they sell. Do you think if that's somebody that people really liked, was a favourite, people really got on board with him, if it was Salt Pappy maybe in the Misfits world or someone like that, do you think people would react differently and go, oh, give him another shot, that's not fair?
I think if people thought, like with the Eubank-Smith fight, because there is enough competitiveness between the two, you would say, well, okay, we'll have a rematch based on that.
So your issue with the KSI thing is not the elbow/forearm, but how competitive the fight was in the first place?
The fight is not competitive. We saw enough of that in the 2 minutes that we saw. I mean, beforehand, we suspected it, didn't we? We said on the show, myself, you, Shane, big up James, we all predicted easy work for KSI. It was probably easier than what I thought it was going to be. And the fact that it ended that way, probably a little bit of a get out for Joe Fournier, if I'm being honest, because he was going out on his back. He was going to get smoked.
But the only way that he can prove that that's not true is to get a rematch.
That's the pride kicking in.
That's the only way that he can prove it's not true.
Pride,
he might
bro.
know in himself that he had a bad night. Anybody's capable of having a bad night.
Bro, like, you saw it. What did he do in those 2 minutes that remotely suggests that he has any chance against KSI?
Not a great deal.
Absolutely nothing. No. He's slow, he's old, he's athletically challenged. He has no chance.
Yeah.
KSI has advantages in every department you could think of. And as I was saying, Joe Fournier, although he's a professional fighter, if you look at who he's fought, they're not very good, bro, and it showed.
So when going forwards, the other thing is as well, we're talking about the quality of Misfits boxing. We're not comparing it to professional boxing, but we're just talking about it as people that know boxing as well. We want to try to hold them to as high standards as possible, right? Again, we're not going to compare it to professional boxing, but we want to see things legitimate and we want to see things not just glossed over because it's influencer boxing. Either we're doing this and we're doing this properly, or we're not doing this at all. And I do think that maybe not on this fight, because like you say, it wasn't super competitive, but maybe on future fights, if something similar happened, we just want to make sure, say if something similar happens now against Tommy Fury, I don't want to see that same...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I've got this on record so that we can be consistent going forwards. But I think we're both unanimous that KSI maybe didn't cheat, but
I don't think it was intentional.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional.
And like I said, morally, yes, you made the point that there is reasonable grounds for Joe Fournier to request a rematch. Yeah. However, what I'm saying is from a physical point of view, in terms of the competition, it's not there. And I don't think from a marketability point of view, business-wise, it doesn't make sense because he's got to fight with Tommy Fury lined up. There's no reason to delay that, to see this again, which is basically a mismatch.
Well, let this be a lesson to anybody going into boxing, whether it's Misfits or traditional boxing, to try and give the best possible account of yourself. Because if Joe Fournier had made that slightly more competitive, he may have earned himself another payday. Do you know what I mean? But ultimately, that's all we've got time for on this particular topic. Myself and Laurie cover boxing on this channel. We're going live most Saturdays for most big fights, influencer boxing, traditional boxing. We're covering Haney versus Lomachenko. So make sure you lock in for that, and make sure you also lock in for our Boxing Talk weekly podcast. It's a forearm, apparently.